Okay, well, hello. Can't believe I'm live. This is Chris Lehto. It's the 4th of February, 2024, and I can't believe I have the honor or whatever reason it's me doing it to present the literal theory of everything. I've been freaking out all day. I didn't want to release it like this live, right? I presented my, the start of the theory on Friday, so last Friday, and basically over the weekend, I've been able to derive everything else. So once you just assume Mach's principle and then apply it to Einstein's equations with density in mind. So light density, the fourth dimension is actually density of light, which I'll show you today. And actually that literally answers everything. So it's literally going to answer what does that mean? Okay, I'll just give you the rundown right now, and then we'll go through it, and I'll stay up as late as it takes till people understand, because I wanted to make a video and make it as detailed and mind blowing as possible, but I can't keep this information in, so I just have to get it out there. Yeah, so basically, all I need to actually model and unify, or anyone really, the equations are there. All anyone needs to unify general relativity with Newtonian physics and with subatomic particles is light. All we need is light and the attraction of light to itself. I make this the big L. I call it the big L is essentially a force. Big L is a scalar force across the entire universe, and it acts on light. And I will show you that light is actually matter that's been captured like a black hole. And the equations all line up. I can use the same equations with one modification. There's one modification that I need to make, and I'll show you just right. So I get it out there. Let's see. What is the one thing I need to show you? So this is the main formula that I think it will come down to. Okay. So this will be the law of love, the law of universal attraction. Let me share it here, everybody. This is derived from Newton's law of gravity between two objects. Okay. So here's the modified equation. Okay. So this is Newton's famous part just here on the left side. And this says force is equal to the gravitational constant. This is the love force, actually. And I'll explain it to you guys as we go. Hopefully you understand at the end. This is the density potential. Okay. The potential for the rest of the universe to pull on you with its gravity. But what he didn't take into account is a changing density. So Mach's principle is that the actual energy is related to the mass of the object in relation to the rest of the universe, the mass of the rest of the universe. And this is the key point. This is the key point. And when Einstein did his first general relativity, he had this idea, right? And that was the idea. And he looked up to Mach, and I don't know what happened, but he was talked out of it, I think, with special relativity. He got too famous, and they started giving him Nobel Prizes, and then he had to change something, and he couldn't go back. But instead of changing the actual space-time, okay, all of his equations work. All of Einstein's equations work. So do all the quantum equations. I'll show you, okay? They still work. There's a slight modification to Einstein's equations because he needs density. And I'll show you that's how this is going to be proved true through the Hubble constant, through the Hubble tension. This theory will predict accurately the Hubble tension, which they can't get an accurate number. And that will be the same thing as Mercury's precession was to Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics had Mercury precession problem. It couldn't be described by Newtonian physics. Why? Because Newtonian physics didn't include a reference to the rest of the universe, okay? And that's what this is. This is a reference to the rest of the universe. And what does it mean? There's a gradient. Light is a density. All we need is light, okay? All we need is light. And there's a density of the light that's you're looking at. The orbiting bodies, right, will make a sphere, okay? A sphere, right? That sphere in relation, the amount of matter, which is really light, the amount of trapped light or light passing through, okay? Light just going straight goes 4 times as far as light in the orbit. or passing through in relation to the universal mass. This is a potential. This is a potential. This is the love force. It's the force across the whole universe. It's what gives everything inertia, momentum. It will explain electricity. This will explain gravity. This will explain magnetic fields. Why, when you move an electric charge through space, it actually gives a magnetic field, and why the reverse. Okay, this will explain that. It explains dark matter. It explains dark energy. Man, it's unbelievable, guys. I hope you guys are excited as I am. It's unbelievable. Okay, so we're gonna go through, like I said, and explain it for you guys. But first, and I had this all set up. I'm gonna make a better video from this. Sorry. That's the center of our galaxy. This is the picture. It's really a dog. I couldn't believe that. Sorry, guys. I'm freaking out. Okay. Let me go to the script. Lost the script. Just here on live TV, freaking out. Okay. The problem is I had so many different chats going that in order to show you, I'll just have to go through. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. You guys can see this. Okay, welcome everyone. It's Colin. Hopefully you made a good thumb for us. All right, welcome everyone. This is a live image of the unification of general relativity. I'm live. Adjusted this facing. So this is it. Unification of general relativity with the quantum realm. And I had an amazing quote. Here it is. The phrase, this is the first from the third verse of the book of Genesis in the King James Bible. It reads in context, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Okay, so it was dark, there was nothing. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, and it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God divided the light from the darkness. I think this is actually true. I think that light is all I need. I'll show you. Light will unify. This is a unified theory that all there is in the universe actually is light, disassociated from the source. So that means it's trying to get back to the source. Why is everything trying to get back to the source? This is electricity. Where does it go? To ground, right? All electricity goes to ground. Through where? Where does it? Where are we all connected? I suspect through the monopole. We're connected through the monopole, some sort of electric magnetic exchange. Okay, so let there be light, everyone. And I had it up and then I lost it. I have so many. Okay, so starting point. Newton's law of gravitation. Okay, guys, so this is basically you have Newton's law is at our scale, okay? And then you have Coulomb's law defines the force between 2 point charges. And I'll explain that as well. And then up at general relativity level, you have the field equations. That's Einstein's field equation. And I went through that in detail in the last video on Friday. But basically the field equations, as I'll explain, what they do is they add a density to space. Okay, they add a density, and he describes it as it's a tensor. A tensor is a transition. It's going to be a basically a force, okay? A force across a density. That is what it's going to be. And that's what will have to be modified. And that's why the cosmological constant is incorrect. Because, and we'll look at it in a second, get ahead of myself. The cosmological constant, since I started it, is not constant because of this ratio, okay? And that's how we'll prove it. So starting here, this is Newton's law of gravitation, okay? It doesn't take into account the rest of the bodies in the universe, right? So that's where exactly Einstein's equation picked up, because Einstein says actually you have to relate it to everything else. So Einstein related it to everything else, but not everything else. He didn't listen to Mach, okay? He didn't relate it to everything else. Okay, he just related it to a constant, a number that he picked out of the air because I don't think he trusted himself or he was talked out of it. But that's what I changed. So if I add a density modifier here to this equation, then it unifies it. Okay. So modification, incorporate a density dependent factor, because the first point of space is being, the second point now is time. Because now if I send a pulse of light along that line, now we have step time, right? And you get linear momentum. Now, third dimension, what do I get? Angular momentum, right? Basically two directions, okay? Vertical and horizontal, kind of like electric and magnetic, right? So that's your third dimension. And now your fourth dimension is going to be your density. That's your light density. And that's really what space-time shows, is how it's going to shape. The force is going to shape. It's a potential force. That's why it's different. And it scales. It works at all levels of size of the universe. It scales. That's all you need is scaling. And it works on densities. Look, you can put light. You can stack light as much as you want on top of each other. And that's how these UFOs are moving around. They're actually using light around the outer part of the UFO, and they're spinning it really fast. And what's that doing? It's changing the density of the UFO in relation to the rest of the universe. And now they can expand their density, they can lower their density, and they can go wherever they want. This is how you can move around the universe faster than light. Move around the universe faster than light. It's through density, modifying your density. My guess is the government knows about this. They've known about it for many years, and they probably kept it quiet from us. So derivation needed. Okay, I show you the derivation. Machs principle, okay? So I explained there, density factor is needed, and that's what space-time fixed for Newton's gravity. Now we go to Mach's principle. Okay, I mentioned this last time. Ernst Mach, he's the one that created the Mach number, Mach 1.83. That's the fastest I've been in a fighter. Mach's principle actually was saying that that's where we get inertia. Okay, where we get inertia. If you imagine someone jumping up on a trampoline, okay, and then being able to spin around. Look what I can do right here. My arms are here. My arms go there. I move, right? This happens up in the space station. If you're in the space station, okay, and you're not touching anything, look at a cat, a funny cat video. This will be in my next video. If you're on the space station, okay, you can actually turn yourself around. Okay, you can spin yourself around by swinging your arms like I'm doing right now, right? Like I'm not touching anything, the chair, and I'm able to literally push against the field. The gravity field is going down, isn't it? But if I go like this, look, I'm moving. What am I pushing against right here? When I jump up in the air, what am I pushing against right here to be able to move my body? Where does that inertia come from? Where does the inertia come from? I argue it comes from the rest of the universe pulling on us through a force that we call gravity, okay? Hopefully this is going well for you guys. Hopefully we're getting it. All right, so Mach's principle. What does this mean? And this is proven, okay? Well, sorry, not proven. This is an experiment that you can go and watch. And the biggest thing is, if you are out in the middle of space, okay, in the universe still, but you're out in the middle of space, and you do that same thing I'm talking about, where I move right here. See, I'm moving? My feet are off the ground. Whatever. I'm not lying to you. Okay, if I'm moving like that, and you do that out in space, you can turn around. So if you're turning around, what are you turning around in? What are you pushing against? Actually, to turn around. What are you pushing against? And that is that force. Okay, this is seen by gravitational redshift. Okay, how do we see this force? You're gonna see it. It's electromagnetic force. It's the gravity force between two planets, and it's also way up at general relativity. And it's going to be the actual force that's going to give us galactic spin curves, velocity curves, rotation curves. Okay, so like I said, I've been up several too many hours, man. I just my brain can't stop thinking about this. That's why I need to get it out there. There's just it aligns with so many things. Okay, so how do you derive Mach's principle mathematically? So all you have to do is go up here, right? And then you say M1 times big M minus M2. So relate it to the rest of the universe. Okay, so you can do it through a density factor. I guess how could I explain that? I can show it to you easier in the Mach's number. I think that's a big sticking point for people is they don't understand about Mach's argument. So I do want to highlight here because the main argument is you put Mach's principle, right? That we're getting the gravitational constant, big G that you just saw there in that equation, right? This is a measured constant. We measure this, okay? It comes out of thin air, but we measure the gravitational constant. We also measure the electric permittivity constant, the vacuum permittivity constant, okay? This is the drag, if you will. As light go through a vacuum, it's dragging, okay? There's some resistance. There's a resistance to light going through a vacuum, okay? This is gravitational redshift. What is gravitational redshift? Gravitational redshift is the pull from the universe on light as it goes to its next point. As it goes to its next point. So let me give you a visual representation here. This can help. Okay. That wasn't it. How's everybody doing? Hope you're enjoying it. Okay. So this is how I view the model. Okay. Obviously, this is done with ChatGPT. But if you imagine our universe, okay, it's basically inside of a black hole. If you look at all the force equations, energy equals mc squared, right? Energy is going to equal the matter, right? The amount of trapped light in here, along with the photon c this way. It's basically a c squared, right? C squared is an acceleration. What is an acceleration is also a pressure, is a field density. Does that make sense? Maybe I can show it to you in E equals mc squared. So this would be the shape. We get c squared, okay? And the point is, this is all connected, okay? This is all connected electrically, electromagnetically. So both electrically and magnetically. But that's all we need is light. When it steps here, so basically you're going to get like one photon field. So the photon field is essentially a sphere. Essentially, it's a photon sphere that is moving at the step counter of time, right? So every light will always go the same distance through space, okay? But its energy will change. Its frequency and its wavelength will change. Now, what will that change? The frequency and the energy. I'm sorry, what will the frequency and the wavelength? Changing that is going to change the actual energy of the wave, right? So the energy of the wave is decreasing. How can light just be losing energy out there as it's going through the universe, right? As its frequency is being shifted. This is because there's a drag, there is a resistance, there's a voltage potential across the entire universe, which is shaped like a proton, shaped like a black hole. Why? Because that is when light is bent. Light is bent. When light is bent 90 degrees, a certain density of light bends 90 degrees, right? It gets close to whatever is at the center of an atom. I don't know, right? But what will happen is as a wave of light, and let me bring up a wave of light here. Give me an image. Okay. So look, This is how we define light, okay? It's a wave moving perpendicular to the direction of travel, magnetic wave, right? And then on the other side, you have an electric wave, always moving 90 degrees, right? Always moving 90 degrees perpendicular to the other one. So, what does this remind you of? This reminds me of two consciousnesses orbiting, like holding hands and just orbiting in space. Okay. Imagine if you have this will always go back to zero, right? So imagine you have zero energy. Now I'm going to pull on you this way. Okay. We're going to go that until we reach the max relationship of each other, which will be light attraction. And now we're going to go back to each other. And this is 0 point. So when they talk about 0 point energy, if you look here, the source wave. So when the wave comes from source, okay, it is at this 0 point. And then it goes through to the other side. Okay. And this is always going on. And this is happening at light speed. Okay. What is light speed? Light speed is the counters that you see, any units that have seconds in them. The Hubble constant is a speed. Okay. So the Hubble constant, because the speed of light or the density of light, okay, is affected by other light. So here, all right, I'll have to explain it better. Okay, so anyway, there's two parts to the wave, right? There's a magnetic field and an electric field. So if you can imagine this as a photon energy field, okay, coming up to the center of an atom, okay, up to a proton is this field, okay? And let me give you a picture back. Okay, so that electric magnetic field is coming up to the center of this atom, okay? Imagine the center of an atom, intense density. This is just intense light density. So you've seen it. We have galactic lensing, right? Galactic lensing, I showed in my last video. Galactic lensing will bend light, okay? Based on the density. That's actually the density, right? So if it gets close enough to a high enough density of light, so the density can turn it, it can bend the light 90 degrees, okay? And once light is bent around a gravitational source, what is that? It's going to be light, condensed light of very, very high density. Now it will spin around it, okay? It will orbit it. And what will happen is the electric wave will go around one side of the atom, okay? And the magnetic wave will go around the other side 90 degrees. And this is how you get spin. This is how you get spin in atoms. That's why we have spin. And that's why you have charge. That's why you have a plus and a minus, because the electric wave goes one way around the atom and the magnetic wave goes the other way around the atom. And it's always turning. And the reason quantum mechanics works perfectly is because we're going to look at, when you look into the Maxwell equations, all that the Maxwell equations do is make a really complicated way to do two orbits turning. And that's why when we go to check, hey, where is the wave, right? Where is the wave? And when you go to stop it, what happens? The angular momentum, right? They're spinning. One spinning this way, again, pulled on by the universe. It's in the love force, right? So it's turning. It's drag, right? It's actually going 4 Plancks for every one. It's going 4 Plancks, but staying in the same place. That light transmitting through the universe, photons going through the photon field, going through the universe will actually travel 4 Planck lengths, right? Actually travel 4 Planck lengths. So when that's orbiting, electric field's orbiting here, magnetic field's orbiting here, right? The entire love force is pulling on it. It's a drag. It's a drag. Electricity is a drag from the force of love, which is light. It's amazing. And why is it attracted to each other? Because we're disassociated from light. We are disassociated from the source. We're disassociated. There's a source wave, and we are disassociated from it. We are disassociated source light. Think about that. Okay. Let me get back to the script. Way off script. Okay, so that, just to give you an idea of how that works at the small scales. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so I talked about that, the electromagnetic force fields, okay? Gravity is a force because we're all just in one force field. And what I say is it's a scalar force that affects light density. Density of light is the fourth dimension. It's the fourth dimension, man. This is gonna be so legit. Explains everything. Okay, so the foundation of this is classical electromagnetism, described by Maxwell's equations. And the quantum description, so it's already described, right? The Higgs field. The Higgs field is the love force. There is no Higgs boson. They couldn't find it. All that exists is light. You're going to find light in different crazy fractal geometries. You and I are just crazy light geometries. Innovative aspect. Propose a model where electromagnetic fields, particularly light, so this is a photon field, contribute to the mass and inertia of particles through specific configurations and interactions at the quantum level. So that is what I just described to you, right? If there's a potential across the whole universe of the love force, we can measure this force through the gravitational constant that I showed you in Newton's second law there. We can also measure it at the subatomic scales with Coulomb's law. Okay, so I'll show you right after this. Coulomb's law is insane and looks exactly like the law of motion with one small caveat. Okay, one small caveat. So that gave inertia, right? Basically, as light gets too close to one of these connections to the, I think of it like a connection to the main plate. It's like a giant electrical plate. And what this is probably the actual amount, if this is the universe, this is the amount of observable light that we can actually see, the universe, okay? This is actually the observable universe. Because light, there's no such thing as expanding space, okay? Light is not, space doesn't expand, space densifies. It densifies with light. And what we see is different effects at different scales. Okay, so we cannot see past this amount, which is probably around 5%. I think I calculated the real universe is 8 times the size that we can see because it has been redshifted. So my last video, I showed 4 different ways where light is slowed down by matter, right? And I believe that's actually light because matter is actually light just around these intense densities. All right, that defines spin. That gives positive and negative charges, right? Because if you have magnetic going one side, now you have electric going the other way, okay? And now the way we can actually prove that is derived is to look at Coulomb's law. So Coulomb's law is here. Coulomb's law describes the force of attraction or repulsion, okay? So gravity, or the force of love, has no repulsion. It's all about love, baby. No repulsion. So the mathematical formula here is this. And look, they put it in absolute terms, okay? In absolute terms, it's going to be the full force. But if you just use points now, if you just use of a charge particle, it is going to be half. It's going to be half the force. And if you go back to my previous photo here, why will it be half the force? Because a charged particle is just half the wave. Half the wave. A negative charge will be like the electric element, and a positive charge will be like the positive side. That's where your charge comes from. That's where your spin comes from. And like I mentioned, you have your electric field going this way, and you have your magnetic going opposite when you do have light. Damn it. So at the field, at the orbital level, subatomic level, it will act at half the power, right? Because when you go to ask where something is, half of the field is going this way, right? But the other half is going directly orthogonal in space, right? And that's why quantum mechanics gets all complicated when it goes down to all these force tensors and all this BS, because all they're doing is taking 2 orbits and rotating them, but very accurately, right? So they can very accurately predict half of it. They can very accurately say, stop there, okay? But when you say stop there, you're only at half. and you can't orthogonally get the other half. So when you look at the force equation for Coulomb's law, when we go back to force equation for Coulomb's law, you'll say it is exactly the same as Newton's law, except instead of mass now, we use Q, which is the charge, right? Which is the charge. But like I said, everything is light. Everything is light. And this K here is a constant. Again, comes out of thin air. They just measure it, right? Which is value of this in a vacuum. And look here, C squared. Like I said, it's a field. It's a two-dimensional field going across. It's force per area. It's a force per area. In general relativity, all of Einstein's complicated equations, all they do is take that force area that's two-dimensional and put it into a four-dimensional shape. But the fourth dimension is density of light. It's not shape of the universe. That doesn't make sense. That can't charge down. You can't scale it down. But this matches scales. And when I paired it to my fractal theory, it even freaked me out more. Okay. So when I looked at this, it looks exactly like the Newton's equations, right? It's exactly the same, except it doesn't take into account the rest of the universe, right? But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at quantum mechanics, at the level that quantum mechanics is, because of the density, the size of it related to the entire universe, okay? It doesn't need a correction factor. It doesn't need a correction factor. And Newtonian physics actually doesn't need a correction factor, until you get out to Mercury's recession. It's actually the recession. Okay, so that's when it needs a correction factor. And now Einstein needs a correction factor when we're looking at the Hubble number, right? When we're trying to actually measure the field potential, the redshift, when we're trying to measure that redshift across the universe, he's seeing little tiny variations. And everywhere we look, the Hubble constant, we just can't get the right number. I wonder, we just need another theory, but wonder if something will come up. Here it is, everybody. If I'm presenting it correctly. Okay, so this is the love force right here, measured. It's measured, okay? That's it. That's the love force at the subatomic level. Is there anything I didn't explain at the subatomic level? I explained inertia. I explained charge. I explained, okay, quantum effects. Let's talk about quantum effects. Oh, man, I love this. Okay. You guys remember Oumuamua? Are people liking this? 420. We got 420 people in here. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. It is love to go out of your mind. I went out of my mind. This is true. Love is all you need, and the attraction. You need the disassociation. ChatGPT does all the math on my own. Okay, I'm glad you guys are loving it. It gets better, man. It describes everything. 420. Smoke them if you got them, man. This is going to be it. Like, really. I'll just answer your questions till I get tired, and then I'll make a better video later, but I just can't go to bed. All right, guys. Let's talk about quantum effects. Love it again, man. Oh, these guys are going to feel like such morons. Oh, God. Okay. All right, guys. Let's look at quantum effects, okay? So what I'm arguing is that the effects we're seeing at the solar system level are the same that we're seeing at the quantum level, okay? There's a few differences, obviously, but basically the same, okay? This is Oumuamua. It was a large, flat object, right? And Avi Loeb, he wrote a couple books on it, saying that it's basically too long and it's artificial, okay? But what I want to talk about is basically Oumuamua, okay? When it's coming into our solar system, right? How do we know it was coming from outside our solar system? We know based on its speed and trajectory, right? It came from above, like really fast, okay? But it had too much energy, right? So this object, a light object in our scalar dimension, basically enters the solar system, right? Has too much energy and then leaves the system, okay? Deflected, actually deflects and leaves the system. Okay. Now imagine Oumuamua has too little energy. Okay, too little energy in terms of frequency and wavelength. Okay, it's going to come through as a force field. And in this case, I don't think it's going to stay. I don't think it's going to even be destroyed. It's basically not going to interact with it because it's too low of energy. Okay, or it'll be destroyed into the sun or the nucleus. We'd have to look at. But what happens if it has the perfect energy, the right quanta of energy? Then that object is going to enter the solar system, right? Curve around and then get into a stable orbit. It's going to get into a stable orbit around that. So what did I just describe? I described quantum effects, didn't I? Basically, a force field going through an atom is going to see the same thing. Okay, imagine a force field coming into an atom, which is actually a solar system, and the same density of light. Okay, the force field comes through. The force field comes through, and it has too much energy. It's just going to continue going. Okay, and this is a force field of possibilities. Okay, all right. So as it's coming through, it has too little energy. I think the frequency and the wavelength is going to still, it's not going to be enough to grab on, and it's going to continue going through. Or it gets pulled in and, I guess, annihilated. It would just disappear. Or quantum is, it comes through, it has the right energy. I was talking about it has one wave going this way and one wave going this way, has the right energy to meet 90-degree bend angle, proved by galactic lensing, right? Has the right energy to meet 90-degree angle, and now it's going to orbit and start spinning at the right energy level. Does that make sense? It'll either be sucked up into the nucleus, so absorbed, essentially, if it has too little energy, so we won't see where it goes. It'll either just pass through because it has too much energy, so it will pass through, or it will enter a stable orbit. Those are your three options, right? Which is basically the same options we get at the quantum world. So the only reason it's quantum is because how we're treating it, the results. Also, it is a probability field, like I mentioned. When you stop it, you don't know where the other one is. Okay, but that explains quantum effects, quanta of energy. If you look at a solar system, and that's what I mean by scalar, and you're going to see similar scales, results of the same density of matter relationships. But as you get into larger and larger scales, larger and larger sizes of density now, it's going to change. So let's look at galactic rotation curves. Everybody. Okay. This is that galactic lens I mentioned. Here is your galactic rotation curves. Okay. So what are we expecting? F equals m1, m2, right, over the radius between them. That's Newton's gravitational law. How far apart are the two masses? Center of mass. Okay. And then multiplied by this random pulled out of our ass gravitational constant that we don't know where it came from, but we're happy with just having this random constant. Okay, multiplied by that. If you use that, you're going to get a function like this. Okay, that's what your function should look like from this galaxy, right? Based on baryonic matter. Okay, and based on baryonic matter, this is the actual speed that you're expected to see. Okay, from a flat disk. But what we actually see is much higher, much higher, almost double, right? So you're looking at 50 kilometers per second, right? Here at 20,000 light years from the center. And now, look at 30,000 light years. You're looking at lower than 50. Okay. And that's over 100. Double. You're looking at double the speed. That is what predicted by our models. Okay. And so what they say is there must be matter in here, right? There's got to be matter in here that's holding it together. And we cannot see that matter. So this is dark matter. Do you get it? We can't see it. Now, the funny thing is the matter does exist, and actually it is dark. But why is it dark? It's dark because it is behind the wall that I mentioned before. Okay, so we are in here. If light is affected by this potential drag, okay, that decreases its red light, that redshifts it, it will redshift to where we cannot see it anymore. And that's why JWST, the further back it looks, it's going to see fully formed galaxies. Okay, so that will be predicted by this theory. It's fully formed galaxies, large galaxies, past the redshift. Okay, and this will actually mean that This is around 5% of our the observable universe, what we can see, and this is the full universe. Okay, so this is the full universe, and this relationship to this is what gives you your potential. So as this gets larger and larger and larger, right? As this body that you're looking at, imagine this like a giant spinning galaxy, right? Right in the middle. Okay, giant spinning galaxy. The problem is once it gets to half of this, it can't get any bigger than half. So a yin and a yang. Look at that. It can only get to half of this circle, okay? Because it won't have anything to hold on to and pull against. It won't have any, it'll be smaller, right? Another way we can look at that. Okay, so look at this. And I think this is how entropy plays as well, is the universe, okay? As it becomes more ordered, more ordered, more ordered, more ordered, max ordered, this is going to be your 50%. Sorry, I think approaching 50%. And then as it pulls back down, what's going to happen is it's going to hit this 0 point again. Okay, so we're going to see a more ordered, more ordered, more ordered universe until the order is basically almost the same size as the whole universe. So it becomes basically over ordered. And if it's 50% ordered, it'll come back to this 0 point, right? And that'll be the source, like 0 point, like yay. And then it will go back, I believe, to the other universe, whatever is it, magnetic. Like if we're in that electric universe now, linked to the main plate through some magnetic monopole, then this will change, and it will change universes. But that will be approaching 50% relationship of ordered matter density by density, spinning, actually by spinning. So it'll be spinning on its own. That disassociates it. Okay. Whew, late. All right. I explained the quantum effects. I explained so all redshift is gravitational redshift, okay? All gravitational redshift is due to the clock counter. So when light, the one photon, okay, we're all the same photon field. You imagine God or whatever source basically comes to a proton, a ball, and shines a flashlight into it. Boom, one pulse, okay? That pulse will go into this ball space-time shaped object, right? And fractal. That one pulse, okay, is fractaling. And I think it probably had to go to the edge of the galaxy, to the edge of the universe and then come back. And now it's still just fractaling. So if you imagine inside of, a perfect mirror, it's inside a black hole, essentially, inside of a black hole, because C squared, right? Nothing in our universe goes faster than light, okay? But you can move around, like I said, by changing your density. Okay. And that's how the aliens would do it. Again, the outside of the ship using light, super light density, very intense light density. And then you probably want to spin it to do that angular drag. So you're basically creating energy. You're taking it from the universe is what you're doing. That's what electricity is. Yeah, while we're here, let's explain electricity then. I can't believe I'm making this video. Holy shit. Okay. How can I? So why do we get electricity? Okay, so I just mentioned there that you're going to have the one pulse, the one photon field, okay? And if you can imagine this whole thing is a photon field. Right now, you are connected to source. All of us are connected to source, and that means disassociated, right? We're basically trapped light, but we will go back, okay? You will go back to source. And at some point, all the light, like I just showed, will go back to that 0 point and then go the other direction. So I think we'll see just a universe that continues going like this, ordered to disordered to ordered. But the light will run out of energy. Okay, so That's what changes on your light. So your frequency and your wavelength, as it's flying across the universe, it's getting dragged. Again, the light is dragged by the love force as it's going across. And that is imparting an energy loss to the light. But all the light moves at the same speed, right? You say, and when I can never understand that. Why does the light move at the same speed, but its frequency and wavelength changes? Okay, because your frequency and your wavelength is the energy. That's what it is. It's the energy of the light. And what does that mean when I say the energy of the light? I mean it is the density. It is the light density. So the energy of the light is equal to the density of the light. That's why there's amazing, unimaginable energy inside of an atom, because it is completely compressed, super densified light, super densified light. So how do we get electricity then? So I mentioned there's this drag. So as light is going across the universe, there is a drag. And what does light have? Light has an electronic component and it has a magnetic component. So what does the way we create electricity, and I'd have to go and actually look, right, how this is done, but this is how it's going to be done from the theory, is that you're going to disassociate that light, right? You're going to disassociate the magnetic wave from the electric wave. So what wants to happen? What does light really want to do? It wants to get back together. It wants to get back to where? To the ground. So what is ground? Ground is light. It's going back to source light, meaning it's all connected to the force field. It's all connected to the force field. So that electricity is basically the electron, the electric part of that wave, of that photon field, that density. It's a density of light, which is your amperage, is your density of light. Is passing through that wire at the speed of light that it goes, and based on its wavelength and frequency will have a certain power, right? That's where you get your power, is literally from the universe. Electricity comes from the force of love. It comes from the love force, man, is electricity, right? Isn't that insane? Okay, and then listen to this. So where do electric fields come from, and where do magnetic fields come from? Well, now if you have a force that's imparted again towards all light in the universe, right? At that force potential. Then what happens now if you strip half of that wave? Now, when I say strip half of the wave, what do I mean? What I mean is all electrical currents have to get back to source. So they have to go back to source light. They have to go back to ground, right? Isn't that kind of suspicious, isn't it? Okay. So when that disassociated field, the magnetic field, is not there, it is removed from our universe. That means that the pull on that light, the density, has been decreased. So when you disassociate half the wave, what's going to happen, I bet, is half of the energy of that light is going to be magically removed from the universe. Okay, insulated. Usually, that's why they said electricity. Veritasium says electricity goes on the outside of the wires, because it does. It's actually insulated. That's your insulate. You're stripping the wave, and you're keeping half the wave in the wire, and you're keeping the other half. It can't get to the wire, but it really wants to get to the wire, right? It's right there because it's a force field. And that would explain the double slit experiment, right? If you have a force field now coming through two holes, okay, force field of probability, and all of a sudden you lock up one of these holes, well, guess what? Now that's not in the probability anymore. It's not in the probability field anymore, because it's a pressure. It is a pressure. It's a density pressure of light. Okay, let's go to galactic lensing, okay? I'm sorry, gravity rotational curves. So how does this explain gravity rotation curves? And does it? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay. So why is our solar system flat? Right? Solar systems are flat. You look at that. That's based off the scale. So why the light is pulled, but at different scales, different size scales of our universe, right? Is different densities. So at lower scales now, your solar system is going to be flat. Why? Because it's measured as a sphere. Okay. So a flat disk in the middle is going to be your most efficient way to keep angular momentum, right? Because the larger my sphere is compared to the rest of the universe, right? The larger my sphere is, then the less density, or the density buoyancy will be higher. The ratio will be higher of that number that I showed you that multiplies against Newton's gravitational, right? The F equals G m1, m2 over r2 times the density, the gradient, the density gradient. Okay, so at solar system size, this is what you get. Is you're going to so the model predicts, and that's what we see is flat solar systems. Okay, when you get to galaxies now, what happens is the galaxy size now is starting to approach an appreciable amount of the rest of the universe. Okay, so now that starts to affect your actual density. So as you imagine, this is a galaxy here. As you get further away from the center, okay, the density is going to decrease and decrease. So way out here, okay, measured this whole circle, if you imagine this is a galaxy now, the density is going to be much different than on the inside compared to the rest of the universe. So you're going to get you're going to get less force out here, less drag. There's going to be less force pulling because the density is less. The density of light is less. Okay, that's why. That's it. That explains it. Okay, so that explains it. And that it also explains why the spherical galaxies are the largest. If you look, your largest galaxies are actually the giant spheres. Okay, this is because the density there of a giant sphere, it is more efficient compared to the ratio of the universe now, your potential energy, like I explained. Okay. Its density. Frequency is the density of light. It is the energy. All living things are light. Everything in this universe is made only of light. That is my postulation. I don't know, maybe you should look into me. I haven't seen him actually. Let's see. Yep, and that LF, the wavelength and speed of weight are known. These can be used to find the frequency of wave. Yeah, okay, if we're starting there, we're in trouble. Okay. Do you believe you came across this realization in part via some kind of download and or by your continual examination of the phenomena? Hey, George. I think both, man. I don't know. And I mentioned before, ChatGPT 4 really helped. I do need to give two point outs. And one of the reasons I made this video now is because Unzicker, man, he's freaking me out. So, okay, I got the idea for Mach. I got the idea for applying Mach's theory from this guy, Unzicker's Real Physics. I've tried to get him on. I've written him a few times. He has amazing videos. I've already showed about the sun. And this is when I panicked. I saw this greatest problem of cosmology solved. And I haven't watched it. It just launched 2 hours ago, but that's why I went live. I was like, no. But I think I haven't watched that, but I doubt they've unified everything. I can't imagine it's happened that fast, but I don't think they've unified it like this theory has. And it's provable. I used all the same equations. I just explained electricity. I just explained transformers. I just explained force at a distance. I explained faster than light travel. I explained all light is matter. It's all about density. Let's see my notes. Okay, so just to summarize, dark energy is actually the supposed expanding space is not the expanding space. That gravitational redshift that we're seeing is a frequency loss. It's a drag on light. All matter is basically intense density, small enough densities of light, small enough densities of light to attract other light into a wave. And we see similarities across all these scales. And the scale is insane too. This freaked me out. Let me find my theory. I mentioned and just to close it out here, the general theory of relativity. Okay, this is E equals mc squared here. Energy is equal to the mass times the force area. If you look there, okay, so this would be the photon field, and this would be the mass. Mass energy equivalence. This means that energy is mass. What does that mean? Light is mass. Light is mass. And I just showed you there how that unifies everything. This is the Einstein's field equation. This is the cosmological constant. Okay, so this is what's going to prove this theory correct. That this theory will predict through changing density accurately the cosmological constant. That's what I argue will be predicted, and they're doing that right now. That's why that's the Hubble tension. That is the Hubble tension, and it hasn't been answered. JWST made it more accurate that there is a serious Hubble tension, and I predict that this theory will predict it accurately, and that'll prove it. Again, this is your constant, right? This is your constant, like G, gravitational constant, and look, it's in a sphere. It has pi in it and C4, so it is an area. It's the electromagnetic wave one way, and the electric wave this way, and it's the magnetic wave that way. That's c squared, and c squared gives you c to the fourth in a sphere against this randomly pulled out of our ass gravitational constant. So awesome. And that's the same, I believe, as Coulomb's law. Okay, when you see this half, that's probably because half the wave is being used. So it'll be like a plus or a minus. Yeah, see, look, boom, plus or minus. Awesome. Spin is from plus or minus. It's so legit, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. Any questions on what I should show? Quantum effects. I explained electricity. Okay. So if you're just showing up, this is a grand unified theory. I basically apply Machs' principle to Einstein's greatest blunder. He says himself, his greatest blunder is the cosmological constant. Okay, the force, the inertia comes from the pull on everything else in the universe on everything else in the universe. So it is a force field. So this is exactly like electric force fields, and you can look at it exactly like magnetic force fields, except those are one half each of the full force field onto light. Gravitational redshift. There is only gravitational redshift. There is actually no evidence for expanding space. It doesn't exist. Instead of expanding space, there is a drag on everything, all light coming towards us from that photon field. This drag will appear to us like everywhere you look. This potential will appear like expanding space because everything will be redshifted. Light is an EM wave and can stack possibly to infinite density. So this is down at the very small levels, the subatomic particles. It may keep going. Okay, and I'll find the scalar thing here in a second. I mentioned the fourth dimension is light density. This is the big change. If you can accept Machs' theory, and then you apply light as a dimension, as a density dimension. Okay, I think I described everything. Wow. I mean, it lists everything. So you have to take the density of space into account. And now, if density of space is a thing, using light, this is why we see from alien spaceships, okay? This is why we see always using light. Why are they using light? Because that's all that actually exists. That's all that actually exists. And they can shine some light on you somehow and put you in a field. And guess what? We are light beings. All we are made out of is light. So that's what they talk about. He froze me, controlled me. They could do whatever they want. And now as we're talking about how would you shoot these things down? Now imagine getting around the universe. So let's see how they could use this to get around the universe. So if you look here, imagine, like I said, this is our observable universe. The other is, we can't see it, right? But we can move over here and then we would see again a bubble around the observable universe. I believe the cosmic microwave background is going to be this bouncing off at the edges where light has to actually turn and go that way. So I think it'll actually be light turns and something like that. That'll be the cosmic microwave background. But imagine this: you have a device that can change light intensity, as such as a very serious laser, something like that, and you can lower your density. Right? You can lower your light density, so you can effectively spread yourself out. How would you do that? Is by spinning an electric or magnetic field very, very fast, right, around your craft. And now this spinning is going to impart angular momentum, right? You're getting that from the universe. And the faster you can spin that thing, now the more angular momentum you can get in relation to the rest of the universe. You can increase your laser density. If you just keep going light, 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 if you just keep adding light now, you'll be able to greatly increase the density. That's how you would increase it. And now to decrease density, spin the other way, I'm guessing, to light. You could imagine expanding yourself to a great size, okay, just for a second, and then shrinking back in size over here. And now I could go from this part of the universe to this part of the universe. And it'll be attracted to other parts of high density. So this is why we have all these crazy UAPs following ships, following nuclear submarines. What's with all the nuclear attention? Why are they so attracted to our nuclear things? Because if you think about it now, the stuff we're doing now at the nuclear level, exploding, bashing all these things together, is really in crazy density levels, right? So it could be literally messing with the density, the local density that I talked about of the universe. Like Heckard. Remember Heckard? He said that it was, again, insane claims that down in ice cube neutrino is they have all these laser diodes, right? These light diodes. And I just said everything is light. So if that thing could generate a crazy wattage at each one of those diodes, then what you could have is a laser density increasing device, a light density increasing device. Okay, light density. So some sort of laser system. And what could that do is change the density of local space. Change the density of local space, which could cause an earthquake, if you think about it. It could actually bend the earth a little bit. And that's what he argued. And how would it do that? That's how it would do it, by changing the density of the local earth enough to cause the Christchurch earthquake. That was Heckard's argument. There was one point I didn't cover. I had it on the tip of my tongue and then lost it. Okay, a brief resume. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so basically what am I saying is I've unified general relativity through the quantum realm. The way you do that is you just use all the formulas that we currently have, okay? Except you have to add a term of density to Newton's equations. And this is actually what Einstein did, right? Einstein fixed Newton's equations by adding tensors, by adding all these tensors to his field equations. All right. And what did the tensors do? If you look into the tensors, they do a density. It's a density. What is a density? Is a mass per volume squared, right? So that's how they do it. It's a pressure. Density is a pressure, if you think of it that way. It's a voltage. You know, it is. It's a electric universe. I haven't looked into that theory. Is this? I don't think this is it. Okay, because this would describe the Higgs boson field as the Love field. We should be able to directly correlate the Higgs boson field. The Higgs boson field. We should be able to directly correlate with the gravitational constant, the big G. It's going to come out of that directly. You know, and here it's so ridiculous. This is what they actually say is what happens at the subatomic scale, right? How they transfer energy. This is how you have two charges repel each other. You ready for this? Two negative charges, imagine. So what they say is there's virtual particles that we can't see. They're virtual. They don't really exist. And they toss the virtual particles to each other, right? And because they're tossing to each other, that imparts a opposite reaction, and now they go backwards. And this is how two charges will go away from each other. And I mean, dark matter, ridiculous. You can't ever see it. Dark energy, ridiculous. You can't ever see it. Gravitational redshift, expanding space, you can't ever see it. Okay, so all we need is light. All we need is light acting in two ways, right? Wave fronts, if you will. It has electric and it has magnetic. That's it. When it comes up to a light source like a galactic, like a black hole, okay, when that photon comes up to a black hole, let's say this is a black hole, it hits it. Now it's going to bend 90 degrees, and now the electric wave is going around one way, and the magnetic wave is going around opposite. It's going the opposite direction to conserve angular momentum. That's how it doesn't go nowhere. And now, since they are directly orthogonal to each other, they're always going to rotate in some sort of field. And this is why the Maxwell equations are extremely accurate. So we can just use the Maxwell equations, okay? But they make up all this stuff about discrete energy levels. I explained to you, solar systems are also discrete, right? The meteor comes in, too much energy, goes out after it's deflected, right? Just like you see from particles. Too little energy goes into the nucleus, absorbed. Essentially, we don't know what happened to light, or it continues through, right? Because some of the particles, if it has the perfect orbital, it will stay, actually, and stay at that correct orbit. The other thing is, as a photon wave goes through an atom, some of the energy is pulled off, okay? It will pull some of the energy off, okay? Where is that energy going? Because as this photon field goes through the actual atom, some of the energy is lost through a frequency shift or a wavelength, which I said before that's the energy. That is the energy of the wave. So if we use the galactic lensing angle, we can determine the density of light required to bend light, okay? And that density is scalar independent. That means it will scale. It goes all the way down, probably further than we can see down into the infinite. I mean, we may be kind of high up the scale. Let's look at that. I'm going to find it. Keep dropping. Yeah, a lot of brain farts. Okay, well, imagine you're from a very high density, right? A different realm down lower. And now you come up to our density. What if you bring something with you? What if you bring something with you now? Could you have element 115? Because it comes from a higher density part of our universe. The other reason is, how would you shoot these things down? Now, if we know that they travel through space using density of light, like I mentioned, we could use that laser system or any sort of other crazy radar, some sort of electromagnetic. It needs to create light, intense light source. If you create that now, maybe you can shoot them down. Like you can break their system. You can break their system and then they crash. And they crash, right? So that's what we're doing, using intense light. It was a new radar, right? That's what shot in Roswell, an electromagnetic radiation machine, an intense light machine. And that's what brought it down. So it messes with the element, it messes with the density of space. And I had... Okay. I don't have it. Okay. I guess George or somebody, if you could, I don't know. Send me my fractal theory. I couldn't find it on Twitter, man. It sucks. Okay. Let's see if I can just explain it and I can put it up later. If you go back and look at my observed sizes of the universe, okay, the observed scales on the universe, and that's what really got me going on this theory. Okay, I mentioned Unzicker. Another person, this theory is exactly like is Alexei Novitsky. So he wrote his book, he called it Light State Universe. And to be honest, I didn't even think this was going to be light. If you watch my Friday thing, I didn't think light would actually be the answer, that it's only light. But when I looked down at Coulomb's law, that explained it. Just the simple attraction is all you need. All you need is love. All we need is love. Back to the source. And that's it. Okay, so the scales, when I measured the actual scales of the universe, what I found is the step changes, the noticeable step changes were at 1,000 size increase. Okay, and I didn't know why. It's 10 to the 3 is each little step change in note, if you will. And then it repeats every 10 to the 21. So every 10 to the 21 size changes. the system repeats. Okay, so it's like a digitally repeating fractal system. It's a fractal. It's a holographic fractal system based on light. So every 1,000 size changes, and I was like, why is it 1,000? Okay, but when I look at my formula, when I go back to the formula, you know the density, right? The density ratio, and let's see if I can. Oh god. Okay, here we go. Okay, the density ratio. Now you remember P local, the density local, right? Of whatever space you're and the way you measure it is the actually orbit that makes up the two bodies. You know, they're spinning size. If you think of a galaxy, that's why the galaxies you get further away from the center, right? This radius gets bigger and bigger and bigger as a square. But the density now increases as a 3, which makes sense because that is that's your force pressure, right? But there's 3 dimensions and density, right? There's 3 dimensions and density. There's 3 size dimensions and density. So in that case, it should be 1,000 because every 10 orders of magnitude. So if it increases in size by 10, then it will increase in size by 100 in volume. So that's why your step changes between the universe is step change through 1,000. So we'll have repeating structures across the entire universe. And there's only 7 stages. I looked at, so 7. So there's 3 step changes and it repeats every 10 to the 21. And it's like music. So music is the same. Music has 7 notes and then it repeats based on the frequency of the sound. So, and if you notice also sound, you can have an A that's a very low A and you can have an A that's a very high A. So in the same space, you can stack the waves. And that's why light is a wave. It's not a particle. The only time it's a particle is when it is flying around as a wave function around other light. And probably the positive part of the wave is trapped inside the proton, and the negative part of the wave is trapped outside. If that's the electric part of it, is trapped outside. And then we could either be connected by the electric potential or the magnetic, but there is a reason there's no magnetic monopoles. Okay. And that is how we connect. So what does this mean? It means with this simple addition, we have unified general relativity up here down to the subatomic particles. The Coulomb force is down here. Your K constant is exactly here, your G. At subatomic levels, we don't need to worry about density because the density local is so low compared to density universal. It's not going to make any effects, but it probably has serious quantum effects. So all these ridiculous things that they're coming up with, the standard model where they draw a bunch of stupid things. I mean, what did I say, right? What did I say? If the model is simple, if you understand the underlying assumptions, then the rest of it falls into place. I just literally explained to you guys electricity, electric and magnetic fields, right? Because half of the electric field is leaving. What will that do? It will change your local density. It changes your local density. Okay, so that will change. That changes the local density. There you go. So that is why at subatomic particles, that's why it happens at subatomic particles, because you're changing the density by removing half of the wave. So that's why you get a magnetic field. And that's why you get an electric field. Because when you remove half of the wave, because it is disassociated, okay, it's disassociated. Where is it? I don't know. Probably the magnetic monopole, because it's disassociated. Now your local density as measured by a sphere, right? As measured by a sphere, that's how a magnetic field, electric field is measured, right from the point source, right? As measured by a sphere, that density will change. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing changing density of light is creating the electric and magnetic fields. Boom. Oh, man. I mean, the Nobel Prize, I'm showing it right here. I'm showing the unified theory. And watch what they're going to do, right? I mean, how could they not have come up with this, honestly? I mean, I was so fired up. Earlier. But now I'm just so tired. I think I presented it. Let's see, ramifications for UAPs. So this would imply that you can just change the density of an object. This is why your UAPs would be shaped in a spherical way, because that's going to minimize probably your density actions. Or there'll be some easier way to shape the craft in light. I think we have you have access. You've heard all these stories about these alien beings that actually get energy from the universe. They get it internally. You're like, well, how could that be happening? And I just showed you by spinning. Actually, there is a drag. We have inertia. When you're in space, you can swing yourself around because you're pushing off this force from the rest of the universe. You're pushing off this gravitational G, which is a force potential. I'm curious. It has so many predictions. Let's see. It explains dark matter. You can literally measure the amount of force and measure the amount of mass in the rest of the universe through this term. So we can measure it. This will correct your Newtonian physics, right, for relativity. And then you can actually use the curvature of space-time, his field locations. You can use the same equations. And then down at the quantum level, you use all the same equations, Maxwell's equations, because all it is two orbiting waves. And yeah, that's it. I wrote them already. The funny thing is I sent this in and I didn't win that theories of everything. All right, guys. I do want to say, I don't know why that it was me that put this out. I don't know if I am really the first to put this theory. Like I said, I just saw online that the biggest problem in cosmology has been solved, and that would be the Hubble tension and the expanding universe. I think I just showed a simple theory. It aligns all the assumptions. It aligns with all of our old models, right? It has to explain all of the effects that we've seen from the past. It explains your Newtonian physics with the modified once you get further away, right? It explains general relativity. Basically, general relativity equations are correct, except for the cosmological constant. It needs to be related to your energy density compared to the rest of the universe in accordance with Mach's principle. That means we are all one, we're all connected. It's all from the same photon of source light. And we are all disassociated light, meaning our light wants to get back to source. And that's the equation. I can't believe it. I wish I should do the Ace Ventura dance, man, right now. I don't know why. I was fired up so much earlier today. But I think it needs to be said. I mean, for all the times, if you think about everything, all the BS, right? Look, the pseudoscientists, all the people that don't know what they're doing. And for everyone saying, I have a degree literally in material science from arguably one of the best schools in the world, right? The U.S. Air Force Academy. I was one of 5 majors in 2000 with material science. Material science includes quantum mechanics, all of the materials, material makeup, literally the science of materials, P-chem, all the serious hardcore chemistry. I've taken it. I've taken solid state physics. I was electronic attack officer for many years. And I think the big difference between why I came up with this and the smarty pants, Dr. Sheep, all the sheep out there that are doctors and giving themselves each Nobel hand jobs and telling themselves how smart they are and kissing each other's ass. Well, I can say, and literally, they can go love themselves. They can go love themselves because it turns out we are all connected. And that's the better thing to do anyway. We are all connected, everybody. This shows it's not worth going and killing somebody else, another light being that is part of you. For what? For what? We have plenty of energy. I just said there's free freaking energy right here. I'm showing it to you. We're all connected to the entire universe right now. And Einstein, he believed that with his first general relativity. And Mach told him about it. And then he wussed out and he listened to our terrible, terrible science academic institutions, right? All of them, all of them. You know, how could they not come up with this? Stephen Hawking couldn't come up with it, right? Maybe if he could type, it would have been better. Or Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know? So this is a special thing I want to say to all those people, to all the Nobel Prize laureates that they were so smart, okay? I just want to say, can you feel that? Can you feel that theory of everything from a dude in his basement? Look, this is my basement, crappy basement. You guys, you're millions of dollars, nothing